Let's discover the secret of detachment of mind. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Facebook. And the individual wrote, "How does one practice detachment of the mind in Buddhism?" So I noticed some questions in the chat window. I will tend to those in a few minutes. Let us begin with what detachment is not. I have seen many Buddhist statues in my nearly 6 decades on this planet, but, 60 decades would be something special, wouldn't it? So I've seen many Buddhist statues in my 6 decades on this planet, and I've seen them holding various accoutrements, but never have I seen one holding both a hacksaw and an ice cream scooper. Thus, I can safely assume that emotional lobotomization has never been part of Buddha's agenda. So if our job is not to... So let's continue with what detachment is not. Detachment is not lobotomizing ourselves. Let us recall that the first of the 7 enlightenment factors is mindfulness. So we are wired in such a way, thanks to a happy coincidence of evolution, so that every time we inhale, whether we notice it or not, whether we want to or not, we are accessing the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the ribcage or the thoracic area of our spinal cord. It has not evolved to indulge either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration, but it has evolved to notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Not only is this the first enlightenment factor, but it is also the 7th fold of the Buddha's 8-fold path. That is how important perception is. Vulnerable perception. Being vulnerable to sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. Being vulnerable to emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Being vulnerable to the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. The first fold of the Buddha's 8-fold path is stress. If you prefer Pali, that would be dukkha. So ask a biologist, they'll tell you there are stressors. Seen through the Buddha's lens of the 4 bases of mindfulness, there are circumstantial stressors, there are physical stressors, there are interpersonal stressors, there are mental stressors. And much to the chagrin of 1,001 armchair psychologists, our ability to experience mental stress is useful. It's not convenient, but it's useful. We evolved the capacity to perceive stress as a survival mechanism. Our ancestors who felt no stress soon became lunch. The second fold of the Buddha's 8-fold path would be the presence of our survival drives. Because sometimes in order to survive, there are some things we must push away from or run away from. There are some things we must reach for or chase after. There are some things we must hold on to. For instance, if we are dangling from a cliff, we better hold on to the root that's sticking out of the cliff that's saving our lives. So there are times when our primary, dare I say, vulgar survival drives are useful. Let's look at the 6 F's. The 6 primary survival drives: to fuck, or feed, or fight, or flee, or faint, or fawn. In terms of mere survival, these are profoundly useful, and they're universal to the animal kingdom. So they do not exist because we believe in a self. They do not exist because we are morally bankrupt. They exist because of evolution, and they have a function. The third fold of the the third noble truth is this: liberation. Buddha does not offer us liberation from our survival mechanisms. He offers us liberation from their tyranny, from there being a constant, from there being an overdrive. Because while pushing or pulling or clinging occasionally might save our life, if we are defined by that constantly, 24/7, we are not going to have a fulfilling life. So the detachment that the Buddha offers us is not detachment from perception. It's detachment from being a fleshy automaton, from being slaves to the mechanisms that are supposed to serve us, not the other way around. If I might be so bold as to quote a dead carpenter who said, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Similarly, each of us has a dopamine reward circuit, but we also have an oxytocin reward circuit. Just as the dopamine circuit rewards for pleasure or the anticipation of pleasure, the oxytocin-oriented circuit rewards for fulfillment that comes from our relationships, be they vocational, recreational, be they platonic, or be they romantic. This is a crucial part of our underbrain. And so the detachment that the Buddha offers us is accessed through the fourth noble truth, the eightfold path. I'm going to go through that in greater detail. But first, I'm going to resort to 30 seconds of housekeeping, and then I'm going to explore we're going to start with the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. First things first. I'm having some real technical difficulties tonight, so hopefully everything will work okay. Going to tap button 3. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent usually about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of Hinduism, Taoism, Judaism, Christianity, and each sect of Buddhism, so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Okay, so this is tonight's primary text. So before I proceed forward at Mach 2 with my hair on fire, I'm going to check the, what's it called? The chat window. So in the chat window, I spy with my little eye the writings of Jedi Jared. Hello, Jedi Jared. Good evening. Does meditation help you to live longer? It can. It really, really can. Of course, if you're doing walking meditation with your eyes closed into live traffic, that might not be the case. So, 2. Does George Lucas often meditate? I imagine he does, but he usually looks pretty grumpy. Couldn't tell you. Me and George don't hang out. Although, it would be grand if we did. Let's see, 3. Funny, I searched George Lucas meditation and one of your vids showed up. Well, that's cool. Hopefully it wasn't too lame a vid. Let's see here. I had a crush on Ahsoka As a teen, I met, that's so cool. I met Ashley Eckstein at Comic-Con, but I forgot to mention this to her. That's okay. You probably both would have died of blushing. Terminal blushing. Criminal offensive blushing. Okay. Bombastic blushing. Okay, so finally, I'm writing a book series myself, and I'm planning on putting meditation into it. Splendid. Splendid. Well, now that I'm caught up, let's boogie on down the road. Whether we call it Satipasadi, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Chan, Protozen, Zen, Mahasandhi, Atyayoga, Dzogchen, Treksho, or George, it's just mindfulness and meditation. So what I'd like to do is get everybody up to speed on meditation in just 4 exercises. The first one is going to be really clunky. Un momento. Got to manage the tchotchkes. So if I look labored, if I have a boo-boo face, I have several disabilities running concurrently. I have autism and ADHD exacerbated by fetal alcohol exposure, birth trauma, brain damage, PTSD, dysautonomia, and chronic fatigue syndrome based on Epstein-Barr infection. So, sometimes I'm juggling a lot of plates at one time. That's what's going on this evening. So if my face looks tired or fatigued or perhaps befuddled, that's what's going on. I explored Buddhism as a means of practical magic, so I would not be a monster. So I would have tools to deal with ADHD meltdowns and autistic meltdowns. And I'm happy to say this stuff works, but it can be taxing. So tonight I've had a great amount of difficulties managing my own disabilities. So once again, if I have a boo-boo face and it's melting your camera, kind of like the penultimate scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, I apologize. Wow, that's very cool, Jared. So here we come now to this evening's first of 4 exercises, where I introduce to you the mindfulness, which is the 7th fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Why do I start with this one? Because it just seems to work better that way. As I mentioned during the opening lesson, every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system, found not within the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, but rather ensconced within the thoracic or ribcage region of our spinal cord. It has evolved not to indulge either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration, but instead it has evolved to perceive. And to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. But wait, you might ask. If we're not supposed to practice active concentration, then what do we do with our breath? Simple. We treat our breath the way a piano student treats their metronome. When we notice our body breathing in, we could silently and mentally recite the 12-syllable observation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. So this is not an affirmation dealing with belief or wishful thinking. This is just based on the here and the now. Similarly, during our exhalation, we could recite an additional 12 syllables, relaxing into minds non-graspable nature. Now, this is going to be clunky. Now, what I'd like very much to do is recite this for 16 rounds. Now, it looks like, and this is tragic, that my jumbo face was obscuring this image. So what I think I'll do is adjust the jumbo image, the jumbo face. Let's see here. It's not letting me do that. Let's go over here. Okay. So quick like a bunny. There we go. And so it's this region here where we have our sympathetic nervous system, right there. So what I'd like to do is practice this ungainly exercise for 16 rounds, assuming that in this context, a round consists of one inhalation followed by one exhalation. Now, because I'm doing all this jibber-jabbering, I'm breathing quick. Therefore, in the time it takes me to do 16 rounds, you might only be able to do 12 or 8. That is not an indictment. Please, there's no need to beat yourself up. And as Morticia Adams said to Gomez, do not torture yourself. That's my job. So a more interesting question is this. How could one count 16 rounds on merely the 4 fingers and 1 thumb of their left hand? Simple. During my inhalation, I advance my left thumb. And it stops at various places. And it stops at the different sets of creases as well as tips. And therefore, I'm able to count to 16. So I'm going to practice right now silently and mentally. I invite you to do so with me. And if you want, you can do a bit of the old monkey see, monkey do with your left hand. Perceiving this very turbulent play of mind, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Excellent. We have completed our first of 4 exercises. One moment. I'm not sure you're showing. Okay, one moment. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. And Jared, that is amazing. I did a micro version of that. I watched the prequels with my partner over the course of I think it was 2 or 3 weekends, and to me that was a triumph because we were able to be on the same page, and I was able to then regale her with my terrible Star Wars jokes. So let's see. I'm going to press this button and advance the page. We come now to meditation, the eighth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. But first, a spot of the old review. Every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system. Got to make sure Mondo face is not in the way. Excellent. Okay, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to notice, just as I mentioned in the opening lesson, sights and sounds and sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, as well as our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Now, a reasonable question is, what do we do with all this stuff that we perceive? And the answer is meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we mean to or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower lumbar region of the exact same spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. It is evolved for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So let's take it a step further. Every time we relax into our exhalation, all that we noticed during our previous inhalation could seem less graspable. Now, since all complex life forms on this planet evolved to think symbolically, let's sprinkle some figurative language into this gumbo. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Now, any English teacher worth their salt will remind us that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is most certainly non-graspable to the hand. Now, in the previous lesson, I should have reminded you that vulnerability is the key that unlocks the door to mindfulness, and that the epitome of vulnerability is nudity. And perhaps that is why the members of the archetype of meditation are depicted as naked. Now we're going to take it a step further. Since whenever we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during the previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, the two individuals comprising this meditational archetype are depicted as being translucent and as non-graspable as a rainbow. During our inhalation, if we're really clever, we could, what's going on here? We can silently and mentally recite sitting tall, thus reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tuchus and our head. And during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite relaxing. Welcome to the first of 2 3-syllable exercises. We now come to our third of 4 exercises. And I'd like to share with you the first of 2 fringe benefits of practicing both mindfulness and meditation. As we I will share this good news with you through the paradigm of bad news and good news. Bad news. When we actively concentrate and when we actively contemplate, our blood collects at the bottom of our limbic system in a lump of flesh described as the amygdala, which functions as the seat of both our aggression and anxiety. Hilarity does not ensue. Fortunately, however, when we replace active concentration with passive mindfulness, and when we replace active contemplation with passive meditation, our blood mass shifts to a hunk of meat described as the anterior cingulate gyrus. In addition to being a winning answer in Scrabble, it is found about 2 or 3 centimeters behind our forehead, and it functions as both the hub of our mirror neurons and the seat of empathy and love and compassion. This is why the greatest of the Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet have insisted that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. Perhaps that is why these 2 figures depicting this archetype of meditation are depicted as beautiful. During our inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite "Notice this." During our exhalation, let us persist with silently and mentally reciting the 3-syllable verb, relaxing. By the way, wishing love is the second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th folds of the Buddha's path could be described as kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. Altogether, what do you have? The essence of mental, interpersonal, physical, and circumstantial morality. All the byproducts of mindfulness and meditation. All right, so Jared wrote, in other news, I'm going to meet Karen Allen. Oh, how cool! In 2 days, I'll be wearing my Indiana Jones costume. Coincidentally, my middle name is Allen. That's great. She was also in Scrooged with Bill Murray, directed by Richard Donner. Have you seen Minda Lee Kumar? In what role is she for what role is she best known, Jared? As now we switch to the 4th of 4 exercises, I would like to share with you the second of two fringe benefits of mindfulness and meditation. Consider, if you will, this Buddhist painting. The female, the color of a cumulus cloud, appears to be actively sporting in tantric union. This reminds us that contrivance is always trumped by spontaneity. Now consider her partner, the color of an azure sky, who appears to be passively savoring the same tantric union. This reminds us that not all spontaneity is created equal. Gotta make sure that the microphone is working. Otherwise, I feel like a monkey's uncle. Yes, it appears to be working. Fabu. Okay. So, this reminds us that not all spontaneity is created equal, and that the scattered spontaneity we might experience after consuming our third espresso in 30 minutes will always be trumped by the centered spontaneity that is the fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. Let's take it a step further. This centered spontaneity is known, or could be described as, the effortless effort of the sixth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, we will still feel the full, we will still experience the full spectrum of perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. But in addition to noticing them when we breathe in, we will be able to release their tyranny as we breathe out, which means, although they're still present in our life, they are not controlling us. The liberation Buddha offers us is not liberation from the presence of perception, emotion, intention, thought, memory, and imagination. It's liberation from their tyranny. And this is what is meant by Buddhist detachment. Welcome to the monosyllabic exercise, our go-to exercise for the remainder of this evening's live stream. Together as a team, let us kick back during our inhalation and simply watch the antics of mind. As silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During our exhalation, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature. As silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease. Oh, fabulous. Give her my regards. Supposedly, this is the first word spoken by humanity or some variation thereof. Oh, that's cool. Having climbed to contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as young Luke Skywalker on Dagobah under the guidance of Yoda. And speaking of enwizened guidance, the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is right view, which is just a fancy way of saying change. Whether we want to or not, whether we intend to or not, during our inhalations we're going to notice change, sometimes overt and sometimes subtle. We'll notice changes in the sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and like that we perceive. We'll notice changes in our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. And because of the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity, it'll happen effortlessly, automatically, whether we want to notice them or not. Doing so makes of grasping an absurdity. Let us take a deeper look at the two individuals comprising this archetype of meditation, described in Sanskrit as Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri, Karmamudra, described in Tibetan as Kuntu Zongpo, Kuntu Zongmo, Yabyum, described humorously in English as, oh, them Buddhists is doing the hibbity-dibbity, and described literally in English as the all-good ones sporting in tantric union. Did you know that you too are all good? How can that be? With all our flaws, with all our shortcomings, how can we be like all good? Simple. We have evolved to notice. We have evolved to let go. We have evolved to love. We have evolved to not only master the Eightfold Path, we have evolved to master the Eightfold Path, no less practice it. Let us bring the 5 regions of our body into the path of bliss and letting go. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever crown or scalp or top of our head we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Vairochana Buddha comprised only of light. Every time as we relax into our exhalation, whatever lower abdomen we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Siddhi Buddha comprised only of emerald light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever throat we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amitabha Buddha comprised only of ruby light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever navel region we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Ratna Sambhava Buddha comprised only of gold-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever chest we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Akshobhya Buddha comprised only of sapphire-colored light. Let us return to this. Let us now practice spontaneous awareness and letting go. That's weird. What happened to the 5 aggregates? Here they are. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever body or form you might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Vairochana Buddha, comprised only of diamond-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we might have felt during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Ranasambhava Buddha, comprised only of gold-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever appraisal of the pleasure or pain, whatever intensity or volume of that pleasure or pain we might have noticed or rated, could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amitabha Buddha, comprised only of ruby-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever survival impulses we have experienced in relation to the pleasure or pain we might have perceived could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amoghasiddhi Buddha, comprised only of emerald-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever awareness or mind we might have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Buddha, comprised only of sapphire-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever dullness, confusion, or befuddlement we might experience during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Vairochana Buddha comprised only of diamond-colored light. Wait, let's rephrase that. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever befuddlement we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as all-pervasive wisdom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever jealousy or competitiveness we might have experienced during the previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as Amoga Siddhi Buddha's all-accomplishing wisdom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever craving we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as Amitabha Buddha's discerning wisdom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pride or grasping we might have noticed during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as real or imagined Ratnasambhava Buddha's equalizing wisdom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever hate we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as real or imagined Akshobhya's mirror-like wisdom. Let us seal this evening's practice by percussively chanting the Heart of Wisdom Sutra by using a golf club practiced at the level of our upper chest. It is an unconscious busa and archetype of love and letting go, while moving in the deep peace of the perfect understanding of awareness and release. Shed light on the five aggregates and found them to be empty, to be equally empty. After this realization, she made peace with all pain. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form. The same is true with feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. Listen, Shariputra, all phenomena are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither corrupted nor purified, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse and no awareness that once perceived cannot be released. No sensation, no flavor, no scent, no sound, no sight, no phenomena that once perceived cannot be released. No body, no tongue, no nose, no ears, no eyes, no mind that once perceived cannot be released. No feeling, no tasting, no smelling, no hearing, no seeing, no noticing that once perceived cannot be released. No interdependent origins and no extinction of them, from confusion to aging and death that once perceived cannot be released. No stress, no confusion, no liberation, no path, no understanding and no attainment that once perceived cannot be released. Because there is no attainment that once perceived cannot be released, the Bodhisattva archetypes of awareness and letting go supported. By the perfection of understanding, find no obstacles for the minds that once perceived cannot be released. Having no obstacles that once perceived cannot be released, they transcend the tyranny of fear. Liberating themselves forever from the tyranny of illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future, thanks to this perfect understanding of noticing and releasing, arrive at full right in universal enlightenment. should know that this perfect understanding of noticing and releasing is like a great mantra, is like an unequaled mantra. The destroyer of the tyranny of all suffering, the incorruptible truth. A mantra of Prajnaparamitas, perfect wisdom of awareness and release could therefore be proclaimed. This is the mantra Gate Gate Pada Gate Pada Samgati Bodhi Swaham. Go completely and perfectly go to enlightenment, may it be so. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.